Life is filled with emotional connections, and the bonds we form often shape our happiness and sense of self. But what happens when those connections start to unravel? How do we navigate the pain of losing someone or realize that the emotional investment isn't returned? Can we truly detach emotionally without losing who we are? Stoicism, especially the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, offers valuable tools for emotionally detaching while maintaining inner peace. Stoic philosophy doesn't advocate becoming cold or indifferent, but rather helps us regain emotional clarity and control. Let's explore 7 Stoic rules to help you emotionally detach from someone and reclaim your peace. Number 1. Understand the impermanence of life. Marcus Aurelius wisely reminds us, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. This idea applies not only to the external world, but also to our relationships. We often create emotional narratives around the people in our lives, attaching more importance to these connections than they may truly deserve. However, the reality is that nothing in life is permanent. People come and go, and relationships fade. When we come to understand the impermanence of life, we free ourselves from the need to hold on to relationships that no longer serve us. By accepting that nothing lasts forever, we release the emotional weight of attachment. Instead of clinging to the past or fearing the future, we can learn to live fully in the present moment. This awareness helps us to face life's inevitable changes with grace, freeing us from the burden of anxiety over what may come or regret over what has already passed. We often hold on to past relationships because we fear losing the comfort or security they provide. Yet, when we embrace the fact that everything in life is transient, we stop tying our happiness to any one person or situation. Think of relationships like leaves on a river. They are beautiful for a time, but we must allow them to flow away without grasping at them. They bring meaning to our lives for as long as they exist, but their departure doesn't take away from the lessons they offered. Understanding impermanence doesn't just help us let go of painful attachments, it also encourages us to adapt. We can still love deeply and form strong connections, but we learn not to hold on too tightly. This mindset fosters a sense of emotional freedom. It helps us avoid being trapped in unrealistic expectations or in the desire to preserve the unchangeable. Relationships and people, like everything else, evolve or move on, and that is part of the natural flow of life. Moreover, recognizing that nothing lasts forever helps us better deal with loss. When we understand that change is inevitable, we are less likely to resist it or be consumed by grief. The Stoic perspective encourages us to embrace the present moment, appreciating relationships while they exist, without fearing their end. The pain of loss becomes less about resisting change and more about accepting it as part of the human experience. Ultimately, when we come to terms with life's impermanence, we can truly let go of the emotional burdens we carry. We stop living in the past, stop worrying about the future, and start to fully appreciate the here and now. Every experience, every relationship has its value, even if it doesn't last forever. By accepting this, we cultivate peace, balance, and resilience, finding strength in the acceptance of life's ebb and flow. Number 2, master your emotions through rational thought. Emotions can often feel like a powerful, uncontrollable force. They surge in response to external events, pain, anger, sadness, especially when we feel emotionally attached to someone or something. Yet, Stoic philosophy teaches us a profound and empowering lesson. Emotions are not inherent truths. They are merely reactions to our thoughts. The Stoics, including Marcus Aurelius, believe that we have the power to control our emotions by choosing how we interpret and respond to situations. Take a breakup, for example. In the aftermath of emotional distress, it's easy to be consumed by a tidal wave of negative emotions. Anger at what happened, sadness over the loss, feelings of betrayal or confusion. These emotions can feel all-encompassing, and often we get swept away by them, allowing them to dictate our thoughts and actions. However, Stoicism invites us to step back and examine the situation rationally, separating the facts from the emotional interpretations we add to them. Instead of letting your mind spiral into negative emotional patterns, ask yourself, what are the facts? What actually happened in this situation? The relationship ended, but what does that mean in terms of the reality you are facing right now? What can I learn from this experience? By focusing on the concrete facts, we reduce the emotional weight of the situation. A breakup is simply a change in circumstances, not a verdict on your worth or future happiness. This shift from emotional reaction to rational thought is the key to mastering your emotions. It is important to recognize that our emotional responses are not automatic or unchangeable. They are the result of the stories we tell ourselves. When you reframe the situation, you regain the power to control how you feel. Instead of seeing the end of the relationship as a personal failure, you can choose to view it as an opportunity for growth and learning. Perhaps this is a chance to focus on yourself, to reassess what you want from future relationships, or to pursue goals and passions that you may have neglected. The Stoics practiced an exercise known as cognitive distancing, the act of creating space between an event and our emotional response to it. They believed that by observing our emotions from a distance, we could analyze them more objectively and avoid letting them cloud our judgment. For example, when feeling heartbroken, you could take a moment to ask, what is the emotion I am feeling right now? And why do I feel this way? Is it because I have attached my happiness to this person, or is it because I fear being alone? Understanding the root of your emotions allows you to choose healthier and more rational ways of thinking about the situation. In a world where emotions are often seen as uncontrollable forces, this Stoic practice offers liberation. Instead of feeling at the mercy of your emotional reactions, you become the master of your internal landscape. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions or denying their existence. Emotions are a natural part of being human. But Stoicism teaches us that we can choose how to respond to them. By focusing on rational thought and controlling our interpretations, we reduce the emotional storm's impact on our lives. For example, after a disappointment, we can shift our thoughts from, "This is unfair, and I can't believe this happened to me," to, "This is a difficult situation, but what can I learn from it?" This reframing of negative thoughts allows us to detach emotionally from the event itself and transform our experience into a lesson rather than a wound. This mental shift is an act of self-empowerment. It is the practice of controlling what we can control, our own minds. One of the most powerful aspects of Stoicism is its emphasis on self-reflection and self-discipline. We are encouraged to regularly examine our thoughts and the emotions that arise from them. By doing so, we can train ourselves to respond with rationality, perspective, and a sense of peace. Instead of being controlled by our emotions, we can choose to respond with clarity, maintaining our sense of inner tranquility regardless of the external chaos around us. Ultimately, the Stoic principle of mastering emotions through rational thought is about reclaiming your autonomy in your own life. When you realize that your emotions do not define you and that you have the ability to interpret and change your thoughts, you free yourself from being overwhelmed by temporary feelings. You cultivate emotional resilience, allowing you to face life's challenges with calmness and a sense of control, even when faced with difficult or painful situations. Number 3, practice negative visualization. At first glance, the idea of imagining the worst-case scenario might seem counterintuitive. Why would you want to mentally prepare for pain, sadness, or loss? Yet this practice, known as negative visualization, is one of the most powerful Stoic exercises and a key tool for emotional resilience. It involves deliberately imagining the potential loss of someone or something dear to you, whether it's a loved one, a relationship, or even material possessions. By mentally confronting the idea of loss before it actually happens, you can significantly lessen its emotional impact when it does occur. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, suggested that we should not burden ourselves by imagining all of life's troubles at once. Rather, he advised us to face each challenge as it arises, dealing with one thing at a time. However, he also recognized that life is filled with uncertainty, and that loss is inevitable. So, rather than letting the fear of loss overwhelm us, Stoicism encourages us to prepare for it mentally in advance. This way, when it does happen, we are not caught off guard by the intensity of our emotions. The core idea behind negative visualization is that by mentally rehearsing the worst-case scenario, we build our emotional resilience and reduce our fear of the unknown. This doesn't mean becoming pessimistic or dwelling on negative thoughts. It's about recognizing the impermanence of life and accepting that change, loss, and pain are natural aspects of the human experience. The more we can accept these realities in our minds, the less devastating they will feel when they manifest in real life. For example, if you are in a relationship, imagine life without that person. What would it be like if the relationship ended? What emotions might arise, and how would you cope with them? This practice is not about wishing for bad things to happen, but rather about acknowledging the possibility that they might. It's a way of preparing yourself, emotionally and mentally, for the unpredictable nature of life. By imagining the worst, we become better equipped to handle it with clarity and equanimity when it eventually occurs. Negative visualization can also apply to other areas of life, whether it's the potential loss of a job, a health issue, or any other significant change. By visualizing the loss of these things, you shift from a mindset of fear and avoidance to one of acceptance and readiness. Instead of feeling helpless or paralyzed when faced with loss, you'll find that you're able to respond with a sense of calm, knowing that you have already prepared yourself for the emotional realities of that situation. This practice is not about dwelling in negativity or cultivating a pessimistic outlook on life. Rather, it's a tool for emotional preparedness. The Stoics believe that suffering often comes from our resistance to the inevitable. When we fear loss, we resist it, which amplifies the pain. But when we accept that loss is a part of life and mentally prepare for it, we can face it with greater strength and resilience. Moreover, negative visualization can enhance our appreciation for the present moment. When you spend time imagining the loss of something dear to you, it reminds you to cherish what you have right now. By contemplating the impermanence of life and relationships, we are motivated to value the people and experiences that currently bring us joy. This practice encourages gratitude as we realize that we are fortunate to have these connections and experiences, even if they are temporary. Additionally, this practice of visualizing loss can help reduce anxiety about the future. We often fear the unknown and dread what may come, but by preparing ourselves for possible outcomes, we remove much of the fear. When we accept that life is uncertain and that loss is a part of that uncertainty, we develop a sense of peace and readiness. This mental preparation gives us the strength to face life's challenges head-on without being overwhelmed by them. In essence, negative visualization is a powerful Stoic tool for emotional growth and resilience. By embracing the possibility of loss before it happens, we prepare ourselves to handle it with greater composure and less emotional upheaval. Rather than fearing the worst, we gain a deeper sense of control over our emotions and the ability to face life's inevitable changes with strength, clarity, and a greater appreciation for what we have in the present. This practice allows us to live more fully, free from the paralyzing fear of loss, and better able to embrace life's fleeting nature with grace and gratitude. Number 4, focus on what you can control. One of the foundational principles of Stoic philosophy is learning to distinguish between what is within our control and what is not. In life, especially in our relationships, this distinction is crucial for emotional well-being. When we become emotionally attached to someone, it's natural to want to influence their feelings, behaviors, or reactions. We may wish to change their opinions, make them feel differently, or control how they treat us. However, the fundamental truth that Stoicism teaches us is that we cannot control others. The only thing truly within our control is how we respond to them and how we respond to any given situation. When we grasp this Stoic principle, we unlock the key to emotional freedom. In any relationship, no matter how close or important, we cannot govern the emotions, actions, or thoughts of another person. We cannot make someone love us more, feel a certain way, or behave in a way that aligns with our desires. Yet, many of us expend tremendous emotional energy trying to control others, only to find that it is an exhausting and ultimately futile pursuit. This often leads to frustration, resentment, and emotional pain. The Stoic approach, however, encourages us to shift the focus back to ourselves. We can control how we think, how we act, and how we emotionally respond to situations. For instance, if a person behaves in a way that upsets us, we cannot force them to change, but we can control how we respond to their behavior. We can choose to remain calm and composed, rather than reacting impulsively with anger or frustration. This internal locus of control is where we find true peace. Imagine a situation where someone close to you behaves in a way that causes emotional distress. Perhaps they say something hurtful, or they act in a way that feels disrespectful. The Stoic wisdom here is to pause and ask, what is within my control in this situation? The truth is, you cannot change their actions or their words, but you can control your own reactions. Do you choose to respond with anger, or do you choose to respond with understanding or calmness? The Stoics teach us that how we respond is always within our power. In this way, we regain our peace by focusing on the one thing that we can control, ourselves. This realization is incredibly liberating. By accepting that we cannot change others, we free ourselves from the emotional turmoil that comes with trying to manipulate or force certain outcomes. We stop worrying about how someone else will react or feel, and instead, we focus on maintaining our own emotional stability. The Stoics understood that the only way to live a peaceful life is to control our own thoughts, actions, and reactions, because these are the only things we can truly govern. In relationships, focusing on what we can control also helps us detach emotionally in a healthy way. When we stop trying to change someone else, we allow them to be who they are. We stop expecting them to behave according to our needs or desires. This doesn't mean that we stop caring about them or their feelings. Rather, it means that we stop attaching our happiness or peace to their behavior. By focusing on how we choose to respond, we create emotional distance in a way that preserves our sense of self and inner calm. For example, if someone we care about withdraws or behaves in a way that feels distant, instead of ruminating on why they've changed or trying to manipulate the situation, we can ask ourselves, how do I want to respond to this? We might choose to give them space, accept their behavior without taking it personally, or reflect on what we can learn from the situation. In this way, we avoid unnecessary emotional turmoil and free ourselves from becoming emotionally dependent on someone else's actions or feelings. This practice of focusing on what we can control also extends to our own emotional responses. We often think of emotions as automatic reactions, but Stoicism teaches us that emotions are not uncontrollable forces. They are shaped by our thoughts and beliefs. If we believe that someone's behavior will upset us, it likely will. If we believe that we cannot tolerate a certain outcome, we are more likely to experience distress. But when we choose to control our mindset and adopt a more rational or balanced view, we can maintain our emotional peace. For instance, consider a situation where you feel hurt by someone's criticism. The Stoic response isn't to deny your feelings, but to examine them. Ask yourself, what about this criticism is causing me distress? Is it because I am taking it personally? Is it because I'm worried about what others think of me? By asking these questions, you can identify the thoughts that are fueling your emotional reaction and choose to reframe them. Maybe the criticism isn't a reflection of your worth, but simply an opinion. Maybe it's an opportunity for growth rather than an attack on your character. In this way, Stoicism teaches us that we have the ability to change the way we think about a situation, and in turn, change the way we feel about it. When we focus on controlling our own thoughts and actions, we find that external events no longer have the same power over our emotions. We stop letting other people's behavior or circumstances dictate how we feel. We become the masters of our own emotional world. Ultimately, by focusing on what we can control, we regain our emotional freedom. We stop trying to change others or manipulate outcomes, and instead, we focus on cultivating our own inner strength. This shift in mindset not only leads to greater peace, but also fosters healthier, more balanced relationships. When we stop attaching our emotional well-being to the behavior of others, we can love and care for people without the fear of losing ourselves in the process. Number 5. Accept reality as it is. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies the principle of acceptance. Life, with all its unpredictability and complexity, cannot be controlled or fixed. Circumstances, people, and situations unfold in ways that are often beyond our influence. When we become emotionally attached to someone, whether through love, friendship, or any other connection, it's natural to want things to unfold according to our wishes. We may wish that a relationship stays intact, that someone we care about changes their behavior, or that a painful experience didn't happen. But the Stoic approach urges us to embrace the reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. Acceptance is not about passively giving in or resigning ourselves to suffering. Rather, it's about acknowledging what is true, even when that truth is uncomfortable or painful. In relationships, the temptation to fix things, to try to change someone, or to control outcomes is strong. We often find ourselves wishing we could alter someone's feelings, make them behave differently, or go back in time to undo a past mistake. However, the Stoic wisdom reminds us that trying to alter the past or change what has already occurred is futile. The past is beyond our reach, and no amount of wishing or longing can change it. Take, for example, the aftermath of a breakup. It's normal to experience feelings of grief, loss, and regret. In these moments, we might wish to go back and change things, replay conversations, or even change our own actions in an attempt to avoid the pain we're feeling. But Stoicism teaches us that the past cannot be rewound or redone. Dwelling on the what-ifs only keeps us stuck in a mental loop, preventing us from moving forward and healing. Instead of trying to change what cannot be changed, the Stoic approach is to accept the situation as it is. Acceptance, in this context, doesn't mean resigning ourselves to a state of helplessness. Instead, it means acknowledging reality without judgment or resistance. It means recognizing that the relationship ended, that the person may no longer be a part of your life, and that the situation is now beyond your control. By accepting these truths, we free ourselves from the constant mental struggle that comes with resistance. The more we fight against reality, the more we suffer. By accepting it, we allow ourselves to heal, grow, and move forward. In relationships, acceptance also means letting go of the desire to change someone else. We often invest emotional energy in trying to change how others feel or act. We may believe that if we love them enough or if we try hard enough, we can make them see things our way or bring them back into our lives. However, Stoicism teaches us that we cannot control others. The only thing we can truly control is ourselves, our thoughts, our actions, and our responses. Acceptance of this truth allows us to stop fighting to control others and instead focus on our own growth and well-being. When we accept reality as it is, we also release ourselves from the burden of unrealistic expectations. In romantic relationships, friendships, or family dynamics, we often build up expectations of how others should behave or how situations should unfold. When those expectations are not met, we feel disappointed, frustrated, or betrayed. But if we accept that people are not perfect, that relationships evolve, and that circumstances change, we are less likely to be thrown off course by unmet expectations. Acceptance frees us from the emotional weight of disappointment because we stop tying our happiness to specific outcomes. This principle of acceptance also extends to our own flaws and limitations. Sometimes, in relationships, we may feel guilt or regret over our actions or inactions. The Stoic path doesn't encourage self-blame, but rather self-awareness. Instead of berating ourselves for the past, we are encouraged to accept our imperfections and learn from them. This self-acceptance allows us to move forward without being weighed down by shame or regret. We can acknowledge our mistakes, accept that we are fallible, and then use those lessons to grow stronger. In emotional loss, whether through a breakup or the end of any significant relationship, we often experience a deep desire to search for meaning or to find reasons for why things went wrong. While reflection and introspection can be helpful, the Stoic approach teaches us not to become trapped in the quest for meaning or understanding, especially when it is unattainable. Sometimes, things simply happen without a clear reason, and we must learn to accept that reality. Instead of clinging to the search for meaning in the midst of loss, the Stoics encourage us to focus on accepting the present moment and what it teaches us. When we accept reality as it is, we also accept that life is inherently unpredictable. We cannot predict what will happen in the future, nor can we control the twists and turns of life's journey. Acceptance of this uncertainty allows us to navigate change with grace, rather than resistance. When we stop trying to impose our will on the world, we open ourselves up to a sense of peace and adaptability. We learn to bend, rather than break, in the face of life's challenges. In conclusion, accepting reality as it is without trying to change the past or control the future, brings profound emotional freedom. It allows us to step out of the cycle of regret, disappointment, and frustration. It helps us focus on what we can control, our present thoughts, actions, and responses. By embracing this Stoic principle, we free ourselves from the emotional turmoil that comes from resisting reality, and we find the strength to move forward with clarity and inner peace. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means embracing life's uncertainty with courage, learning from every experience, and continuing to grow, regardless of the outcome. Number 6. Reflect on the bigger picture. When we are deeply emotionally invested in a relationship or facing a difficult situation, it's easy to become overwhelmed by the intensity of our feelings. In the heat of emotional pain, it can feel as though the world is collapsing around us, and we may find ourselves trapped in the narrow scope of our current struggles. In such moments, it is vital to take a step back and consider life from a broader perspective, a practice that Marcus Aurelius encouraged throughout his writings. The Stoic philosopher understood that our lives are shaped by an endless stream of events, most of which are fleeting. When we zoom out and reflect on the bigger picture, we begin to see that the pain or turmoil we experience in the present is but a small chapter in the vast timeline of our lives. The struggles we face today may feel all-consuming, but they are often transient and will fade with time. By viewing our difficulties from a more expansive viewpoint, we can shift our focus from the immediate emotional turmoil to a more balanced and objective understanding of life's ebb and flow. One of the most powerful Stoic practices is to ask ourselves, will this pain matter in 5 years? This question invites us to put our current emotional distress into perspective. Often the answer is no. The pain we feel in the moment, though intense, will likely diminish over time. Relationships may end, but new opportunities will arise. What feels like a devastating loss now may, in retrospect, appear as a valuable lesson or a necessary change that helped us grow. By recognizing the impermanence of our struggles, we can lessen their grip on us and begin to heal. Similarly, asking, does this person define my entire life, challenges the idea that any one person or event holds the power to dictate our happiness. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that someone's presence or absence defines our sense of self-worth or meaning. However, from a Stoic perspective, no individual, no matter how significant, should have that kind of power over us. Our identity and peace of mind must come from within, not from external sources. Reflecting on the bigger picture helps us detach from the belief that anyone or anything outside of ourselves holds the key to our fulfillment. The key to emotional detachment lies in the recognition that our lives are made up of countless moments, many of which are far less significant than they seem in the heat of the moment. Whether it's a difficult breakup, a painful rejection, or a temporary setback, these moments are part of the natural flow of life. By stepping back and seeing our challenges within the context of the larger narrative of our existence, we can better understand that this, too, shall pass. Stoicism teaches that we must not be enslaved by our emotions or circumstances. Instead, we should view our struggles with a sense of detachment, acknowledging that they are part of a much greater whole. This doesn't mean we should be indifferent or apathetic to our challenges. On the contrary, it means we should approach them with equanimity, understanding that our happiness does not depend on any one person, event, or circumstance. For example, during a period of personal loss or failure, we might feel like we've lost everything. The pain seems unbearable, and we might even question the meaning of our lives. But by shifting our focus to the broader scope of our existence, seeing our struggles as just one moment in time rather than the entirety of our journey, we can regain our emotional stability. In a year, 5 years, or 10 years, this moment may not even register as a significant event in the grand scheme of things. Understanding this helps to alleviate the emotional weight we carry. Moreover, reflecting on the bigger picture also helps us realize that life is full of potential for growth, learning, and change. A difficult chapter in our lives doesn't define us. Each new day is an opportunity to move forward, to grow, and to pursue new goals. By understanding the transient nature of our emotions and experiences, we can free ourselves from the idea that any one event will determine our future happiness. The bigger picture reveals the endless potential for transformation and resilience. This perspective encourages us to embrace life's uncertainties with calmness and clarity. Instead of getting lost in the details of one painful moment, we learn to view our challenges as part of a continuous process of change. Our difficulties are not the end of the story. They are simply moments within a much larger journey. When we practice reflecting on the bigger picture, we also cultivate a sense of gratitude for the present moment. By recognizing the fleeting nature of our struggles, we develop a greater appreciation for the good things in our lives, even amidst the pain. Life is full of contrasts, pleasure and pain, success and failure, joy and sorrow. Understanding that each moment, no matter how difficult, contributes to the richness of the human experience can bring a sense of peace and acceptance. In conclusion, taking the time to reflect on the bigger picture allows us to detach emotionally from the immediacy of our struggles. It helps us understand that our current pain is temporary and that we are not defined by any one event or person. This broader perspective grants us the clarity to move forward with resilience, knowing that life's difficulties are just moments in the grand tapestry of our existence. By embracing this Stoic practice, we can navigate life's ups and downs with greater peace, wisdom, and emotional freedom. Number 7, embrace the impermanence of relationships. In life, nothing is truly permanent, and this includes our relationships with others. While it may be a difficult truth to swallow, the Stoic approach to relationships teaches us that everything, even the deepest connections, is transient. People come into our lives and may, for various reasons, eventually leave. Whether through changing circumstances, personal growth, physical distance, or even death, relationships evolve, and no bond, no matter how strong, is immune to the inevitable flow of time. The Stoic philosophers, including Marcus Aurelius, consistently emphasized the importance of recognizing the impermanence of all things. This includes relationships, which are often one of the most emotionally charged aspects of our lives. Our natural instinct is to hold on tightly to people we love, to fear their absence, or to desperately seek to preserve relationships out of fear of change. But the Stoic wisdom challenges us to rethink this approach. By acknowledging that relationships, like everything else, are temporary, we can free ourselves from unnecessary emotional suffering. One of the most common sources of pain in relationships is the fear of loss. When we become deeply emotionally attached to someone, we may start to see them as essential to our happiness or sense of self. The thought of losing that person, whether through a breakup, growing apart, or other life changes, can feel overwhelming. We may find ourselves holding on to the relationship more tightly, trying to control the dynamics to ensure it doesn't slip away. However, this clinging only exacerbates our distress, as it is rooted in the belief that our happiness depends on maintaining the relationship as it is. The Stoics, however, suggest that we should let go of the illusion that we can control the course of a relationship or prevent its natural evolution. Life is in constant flux, and relationships by their nature are subject to change. The joy of a relationship is precious, but so too is the wisdom of letting go when the time comes. When we embrace the impermanence of relationships, we stop viewing them as fixed entities that must remain the same forever. Instead, we learn to appreciate them for what they are in the present moment and release our grip on the fear of losing them. Consider the analogy of a tree. It may blossom beautifully in spring, but it must also lose its leaves in autumn. Both are natural phases of the tree's life cycle. Similarly, relationships go through various seasons. There are times when connections deepen, grow, and flourish, but there are also times when they weaken, fade, or end. Embracing this ebb and flow allows us to enjoy the beauty of our relationships while accepting that change is inevitable. By accepting the impermanence of relationships, we free ourselves from the anxiety that often accompanies emotional attachment. Instead of fearing the end of a connection, we can learn to live fully in the present, appreciating the time we have with the people we care about. This shift in mindset brings peace, as we no longer feel the need to hold on desperately or fear that the loss of a relationship will destroy us. The Stoics teach us that we are not defined by any one connection or person. Our sense of worth is internal, rooted in our own values, and not dependent on external circumstances or relationships. Another key aspect of embracing impermanence is recognizing that the end of a relationship doesn't necessarily signify failure or loss. Just as seasons change, people change, and relationships change, they can end for reasons that are beyond our control. And sometimes these endings can be the best thing for both individuals involved. If we are able to see the end of a relationship as a natural progression rather than a personal defeat, we can release the emotional burden of regret, guilt, or anger. Additionally, embracing the impermanence of relationships opens us up to new possibilities. When we learn to let go of attachments, we allow space for new people, experiences, and opportunities to enter our lives. Holding on to the past, whether it's a relationship, a job, or an idea, limits our growth and potential. The Stoic mindset encourages us to remain adaptable, to move forward with confidence, and to understand that change, though often difficult, is also a source of opportunity and renewal. In practice, embracing the impermanence of relationships means accepting that all relationships, even the most meaningful ones, may not last forever. Whether they end through circumstances or drift apart over time, we can honor what those relationships brought to our lives without clinging to them out of fear or attachment. Instead, we can hold the memory of the relationship with gratitude, appreciating the joy and lessons it provided, while acknowledging that the time has come to move on. This doesn't mean we should approach relationships with indifference or cynicism. Rather, Stoicism encourages us to enjoy our connections to the fullest, while understanding that their ending is a part of the natural order of life. By accepting the impermanence of relationships, we can avoid the suffering that comes from clinging too tightly, and instead live in harmony with the changing nature of life. Ultimately, embracing the impermanence of relationships gives us the freedom to live without the burden of fear and attachment. It allows us to navigate the ups and downs of life with resilience and grace, knowing that each chapter, each relationship, is an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. By accepting that relationships, like all things, are temporary, we can truly live in the present, appreciate the bonds we have, and face the inevitable changes with peace and wisdom. Conclusion: the path to emotional freedom. Emotional detachment, as taught by Stoics like Marcus Aurelius, is not about becoming cold, detached, or indifferent to life's experiences. It is not about suppressing your emotions or disconnecting from others in a way that harms your capacity for love or connection. Rather, it is about understanding and accepting that everything in life is temporary. Relationships, circumstances, and even the emotions we experience in response to them are all transient. By embracing the impermanence of life, we allow ourselves to let go of the grip that attachments and expectations often have on us. At its core, emotional detachment through Stoicism is about acknowledging the limits of our control. We cannot dictate how others feel, act, or change, and we cannot prevent life from unfolding as it will. But we can choose how we respond. We can take responsibility for our emotional reactions and begin to recognize that the source of much of our suffering often lies not in external circumstances, but in the way we think about them. Stoicism teaches us to direct our energy inward, focusing on what is within our power, our thoughts, choices, and attitudes. These 7 Stoic rules are not just abstract concepts, they are practical tools that empower us to build emotional resilience. By understanding that relationships, like all things in life, are impermanent, we can more gracefully navigate the inevitable changes that come our way. When we detach from harmful emotional attachments, we free ourselves from the fear of loss and the pain that often accompanies it. We come to realize that our happiness does not depend on any one person, outcome, or situation, but rather on our ability to live in accordance with our values, to accept what is, and to find peace within ourselves. Through these teachings, we gain the clarity to face life's challenges with a steady mind. We can look at our relationships, our successes, and our failures with perspective, recognizing them for what they are: transient experiences that do not define us. Emotional detachment, when practiced with wisdom, does not diminish our capacity for love or compassion. Rather, it allows us to approach these things with a sense of inner peace and stability. When we learn to emotionally detach, we regain our power. We stop giving our emotional energy away to things outside of our control, and we start to invest that energy in building a life of an intentionality and peace. By embracing the temporary nature of life, we can more fully appreciate the present moment, live with less fear of future loss, and face adversity with strength and grace. In this way, emotional detachment is not a form of resignation, but an active choice to live with freedom, clarity, and a deep sense of acceptance. Thank you for reading and exploring these Stoic principles for emotionally detaching from someone. The journey to emotional freedom and peace can be challenging, but with the guidance of Stoic wisdom, we can learn to navigate life's ups and downs with clarity and resilience. By understanding the impermanence of life, mastering our emotions, practicing negative visualization, focusing on what we can control, accepting reality, reflecting on the bigger picture, and embracing the natural flow of relationships, we can reclaim control over our emotional well-being and live more fully in the present. If you found this article valuable, don't forget to like, share, and comment below to let us know your thoughts. Subscribe for more insightful content on Stoic philosophy and emotional well-being. Share this with anyone who might benefit from these teachings, and let's keep the conversation going. Your feedback means a lot, and we'd love to hear how Stoic principles have helped you in your own journey. Thank you again for your time, and stay connected for more ways to grow, learn, and live with peace and resilience.